Welcome to Acute Conversations, the official podcast of APT Acute Care, where we share engaging conversations about acute care physical therapy so you can connect to your profession. I'm your host, Leo Arguelles, and today's guests are Dr. Jamie Dyson and Dr. Constanza Aranda. We discuss how Connie sought out Jamie for mentorship, Connie's professional growth from DPT student and CSM attendee to CSM presenter for the acute care section, and how when mentorship is done right, it benefits both the mentor and mentee. Let's welcome our guests. Welcome to another episode of Acute Conversations. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about mentorship and mentoring. So we've got two guests. We have one returning guest, Dr. Jamie Dyson. Thank you, Jamie, for being here today. And
thank you for allowing me back.
Perfect. And then our other guest, our new guest, is Dr. Constanza Aranda, also coming from Florida, who was a student of Jamie's, at Jamie's DPT program. And let me just maybe start off by saying, when I first came across him, I've known Jamie for years, but it was at CSM a couple years ago in San Antonio, where I went to Jamie's education session, and Connie was also there presenting, and it was fantastic to hear her story about when she was a DPT student. She came to CSM and said, wow, one day my dream is to be able to present at CSM. And there she was in San Antonio presenting. So it was so cool to hear her story. I'm so glad I was able to invite both of them here to talk about mentorship and mentoring and how it's had an impact on both of them, and especially with Connie's career. So Connie, can you talk a little bit about that? Maybe we start with that, about your first CSM experience and then how that led you up to actually presenting with Jamie.
Yeah, so we can talk about my first CSM experience only to a certain extent because it was New Orleans. Oh, so we all know what happens in New Orleans, New Orleans.
There we go.
But it was my last year at DPT school. My school encouraged us to go and attend CSM in our last year. And of course, why wouldn't you hang out with the cool people at CSM and having your faculty there? And at that time, Jamie was director of membership for also the Florida Physical Therapy Association. So it was all about networking, meeting people. And Jamie and I started with this joke. It's like, he was there to teach me how to conference. So we conferenced quite a bit. Mm-hmm. But in those moments of just discussing and talking, we realized that there was a great connection as a mentor-mentee, and that's how kind of it flowed for the rest of the time of our relationship. But also, I was just in awe of everything that I was seeing, the people that I was meeting, the energy in the room. I mean, everyone that has attended a CSM knows that you go there to get re-energized and fall in love all over again with your career. And you get to see friends that you haven't seen in like forever.
Right.
So in those moments, he pushed me to ask questions at lectures. He poked me a little bit to kind of like get out of my shell. You may not be able to tell, but I'm super shy, or at least I was. Mm-hmm. And that was when I said, wow, like it would be so cool one day to be able to present in such a big stage like CSM. Mm-hmm. And Jamie, being the mentor that he is, he said, noted. And a little mental note, and he said, I think we have just written our first goal as mentor-mentee. Wow. And I didn't think much of it at that moment until we were presenting in San Antonio, and he actually shared that story with him, and then with the crowd.
Yeah.
And then we presented again in Houston. So funny that both of my presentations have been at CSM Texas.
Yeah. And I'll say too, as a testament, the room was packed. I remember the one in San Antonio. It was a packed room, and Jamie's lectures are always such a lot of knowledge, great evidence, great information. So it was so fun being part of that. Now, Jamie, I wanted to ask you, so what do you remember about Connie as a DPT student, as coming to her first CSM, and what do you remember from that experience?
Well, Connie was kind of a shy one. Yeah, believe it or not, she was one of the shy students, and she wouldn't speak up a whole lot during class. And so, one of my first encounters with her was kind of talking to her, you're very smart. Why aren't you talking more during class and participating more and sharing what you know during class? And, she told me she was shy, and I said, if you want to be successful in this profession, you have to be able to network. You have to be able to talk to people. You have to be able to share what it is you know. You get smarter by sharing what you know with other people. And so we started working on it, and she started getting more engaged and involved with the professional organization. I started calling on her in class to kind of share her stuff. I don't think she liked that much, but that's okay. She only threw a few things at me. That when she threw her phone at me, I had to duck, but it's all good. No, I'm just kidding. And then from there, it just grew. And then when she came to CSM in New Orleans, she really wanted to, get her network on. And so we started networking. I introduced her to everyone I knew as we moved through the crowds. And I believe I don't remember what I presented on at New Orleans, but I believe I presented, and Connie was there in the front row cheering me on, which is always helpful when you have people in the front row. And at the end of that, she's like, I want to do this. And so that's where the relationship kind of started. And we started with some smaller presentations. We started with some at the state level, at the chapter level. And then we moved on into, I believe we presented it next before that disbanded. And then finally she got, to the big stage at CSM. And quite honestly, I don't even remember what the topic was we were talking about there, but I know she did a great job. And, we've done a few more since, and she just does a great job. It's always a pleasure to present with her. And now I have others seeing what Connie's done, and they're wanting to kind of jump on the same bandwagon, but they don't have the dedication that Connie has. Connie was very dedicated. When you tell her, okay, we need this done by this date, if you want to be able to do this, she has it done a week ahead of time. Wow. And she's waiting for me to get my stuff done. Mm-hmm. So it's, it's easier to be a mentor when your mentee takes an active role in the relationship. Too many mentees try to take a passive route and just kind of think it's going to osmose out of my head into theirs. And that's not how it works. It's a active role. It's not a spectator sport by any stretch of the imagination. So you're going to get out of it what you put into it. And Connie has just put a ton into it, which is why she's been able to, grow well beyond some of her classmates. I know a lot of her classmates, they haven't done a quarter of the stuff that she has done as a graduate. And I'm just so proud of her.
That's so cool.
There are some that have. But just to add on to what Jamie said, now that I'm on the other spectrum, I'm still a mentee, of course, because I think that I'm going to be a lifelong mentee of Jamie. Mm-hmm. But I have taken a little bit of the role of a mentor for some students or new grads that they are coming out. And like Jamie said, at the beginning, it was almost frustrating. I was like, wow, like I'm offering all this assistance and this help and my availability. And some of them are not responding, they're not calling. And that's when Jamie said, as a mentor, when you are a mentor, you can be chasing them.
Right.
You make yourself available where they need you, but the communication can start from you. Mm-hmm. That was a huge lesson that I had to learn as becoming a mentor for others.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I want to highlight that through APT Acute Care, we do have this program put together by Patricia Healy and Kim Levenhagen, Aspire and Achieve. It's our formal mentorship program. But in order for it to be successful, like you've already started to highlight, but what are the things that are necessary for mentorship to be successful, right? And there should be some ground rules. There should be some type of formal kind of meeting times. And Jamie, I love what you said, is that it's like the mentee is only going to get as much as they put in. And so you already highlighted some of those things because, again, for the people that are out there, and I think the timing is great when this podcast is coming out because there are now a lot of new grads that are graduating and maybe looking for new jobs or looking for their first career job. And part of what they're looking for is mentorship. But again, it's not like you said, Jamie, it's not like osmosis. Just by standing next to the mentee or the mentor, you're going to get better. It's got to be an active process. So can you talk about those steps of what is necessary for a successful mentorship? Because the two of you are a prime example.
Yeah, it's really
And this is a funny story, and I took it to the extreme. So when I graduated, or I was close to graduation, I only applied to one job. And you may want to know which job was that. the hospital that Jamie was working at. Because I only wanted to continue that close mentorship. And I felt like if I went elsewhere, sure, I will be able to continue to have access to him, but would I be able to watch him in action and to absorb everything he does and how he chart reviews and how he makes clinical decisions in critical care, or how he will talk to the family or talk to the nurses, like things that we don't necessarily learn in school. We learn through our clinicals, but if you don't get a good CI, you're kind of like not really in the upper quarter of those people that are getting a great experience.
Right.
So I was able to get that job, and I had the privilege to not only be his mentee, but also work with him for a year and a half and absorb as much as I could. So I took it to another level of being like a stalker.
Yeah, she put up with me for a year and a half. And, I can, as a mentor, what I found is these relationships that kind of develop on their own seem to work a lot better than those when you're actually assigned a mentor. I'm a mentor for the APT Acute Care Mentorship Program, and I've been assigned to, and those mentees have not put much into it. I've had some conversations with them. I actually met one at the last CSM here, which was great. But somebody I met while attending the meetup has become somebody that has been a much better mentee. Actually, she works with me now too. And she decided to work where I work to strengthen the relationship. And she wants to speak at CSM. So, we have a next generation coming down the pike. But the relationship was just kind of formed on its own instead of being assigned. I also served as a leadership scholar mentor, the APTA Leadership Scholars Program. I served as a mentor for 3 years. And again, you're assigned these mentees, and actually some of them have worked great, but others of them I've kind of lost touch with because they haven't tried to maintain that relationship. And, as a mentor, sometimes you feel bad, man, I wish I could have done more for them. But, we can't, hold that against ourselves because they have to put the effort in too. We're already volunteering our time as a mentor, and I will talk to anyone who will listen to me. You guys know that. And too bad you can't run away because we're locked in this podcast right now. But again, a conversation is a two-way street. Networking is a two-way street. You have to put in what you want to get out, and some people do it and others don't. And you're only going to get out of it what you put into it as a mentee and a mentor. I get just as much out of being a mentor as anyone does being a mentee, because it allows me to grow. I get to hear their ideas, and many times I'll integrate those ideas into my knowledge bank and use it to help others as well. So it's not just me sharing what I know. I get to hear what they know as well. Because it's been a long time since I was in school. So I'm learning from them just as much as they're learning from me.
That's great to put that out there too, because we have people that are, again, like in Connie's shoes, where they've been mentored and it was a great experience, but now they're thinking about kind of paying it back, right? And getting the opportunity to be mentors. But sometimes people, it's usually volunteer, and whether it's through like the workplace or whether it's through like APT Acute Care or maybe at the state level. But there are benefits and perks of being a mentor. And like you said, Jamie, is in terms of maybe with a new mentee, just kind of learning from their perspective. What are some of the different challenges that maybe you didn't have when you were in PT school, when you were finding a job? The job market is probably very different compared to when you were first looking for a job, and healthcare has definitely evolved and things have changed. And so applying that and kind of, but again, like Jamie, you've got, and Connie too, as a mentor, you have this wealth and breadth of knowledge that I feel like it's like gold that people just have not discovered and not taken advantage of. And so I like the fact that you had mentioned, like, it's what you put into it. You have to demonstrate initiative to be able to get it, as much as you can out of it. And Connie, you said in terms of proximity, you specifically sought out a job so you could be, boots to the ground there on the floors with Jamie to see, for the basics of his chart review, his communication, his interaction, his thought process, to really just really drinking from the stream and trying to take as much information.
And it's also good to highlight on this point, Leo, that we always talk about mentoring as a generational process. Like, I'm older, I'm more experienced, I mentor you. I have had mentees that they're older than me, that they have been in the field longer than I have, but maybe they have not involved in the association as long as I have. And they're seeking some mentoring of how they can get involved after being a PT for so long. So we need to also think outside of the box and kind of break the barriers that we put on ourselves, and thinking that mentoring is always generational or like hierarchically, because there is an opportunity to be all the way around.
Right. I like that. In terms of, like you said, thinking outside the box. It's not always just like this, but in terms of experience, you're the one that has more experience, right? At the maybe at the state level or at the national level, the APTA, like for presenting. And actually, my mentee, Melinda, who's out there, if she's listening to the podcast, she listens pretty regularly. Same thing. That was what she was looking for. She wanted more opportunities. And we went through the Achieve and Aspire program through APTA, and she wanted more opportunities for presenting at CSM or maybe at the state level, and which she has at her hospital. She's gotten a chance to kind of present, education courses, which is great. Now, Jamie, Connie, I wanted to ask you too, were there anything, for example, Connie, was there anything just revelatory that as you started to, as a new grad, working with Jamie, that you're like, wow, I had never, even through all my DPT courses and my clinicals, I had never seen this. Was there anything that you were able to kind of learn with Jamie as a new grad that were like, wow, that was very eye-opening? You're smiling already, so I think this is a good story.
Please learn something. But the one thing that I learned, and this was even before the pandemic, because we have heard this concept that I'm about to talk about. We have heard this concept of blowing the goalpost and kind of sometimes forgetting a little bit what you have been taught and go with what's working for that patient based on where they are or the acuity that they are in that moment.
Yeah.
Quite a bit now that we are caring for these long haulers, or we were during the pandemic, we were caring for COVID patients. But that's something that Jamie does in the regular with his knowledge base and his experience. He is so in tune with the movement system that we preach, that we are experts, and that starts from critical care all the way to outpatient. It doesn't only applies to patients that they have, to therapists that have patients that are talking and walking and just getting ready to their lives. It starts with the one that is on the vent. It starts with the one that is getting confusions or is getting ready for a transplant or is polytrauma. It doesn't matter. You have to be able to think critically, look at the entire movement system, look at every single node that you think that it might have something in it, because as we know, some other healthcare providers may not necessarily be as detailed or as communicative with others. They may play very well on their own in the sandbox, but they don't play well with everyone else. So that is something that I did learn working in such a close proximity with Jamie, is that you need to be an active and proactive member of that clinical team. Wow. And most of the times applying some of those concepts, I have found myself being the one that it's on rounds and saying, wait a minute, you're getting to discharge this patient, but have you looked at X, Y, and Z? And then all of a sudden this patient ended up staying in ICU for another 3 months because we as physical therapists were the one that caught it. So I think that staying curious that's what I'm going to call it, staying curious and being able to trust your knowledge base and feel comfortable when to call it out when you're trying to blow this goalpost a little bit out of the water. Very
cool. Jamie, do you have any stories of things that you've learned working with different mentees, whether it's Connie or maybe some of the
I have lots of stories, but
I'd love to
one of the things that I learned early on is I'm not going to make all the mentees like me. My job is to kind of guide them so that they can be the best therapist, the best leader, the best educator that they can be with their set of skills. So I can help them improve those skills. I can, give them resources to help themselves. But when it comes right down to it, we have these innate traits that we're born with, and we just develop them as we get older. And as a mentor, it's kind of my job to help them develop, even beyond where they are. but I don't want them to be exactly like me. Help us if there's a bunch of me's running around. But it's to make them the best that they can be with their particular traits. And if there's a barrier that I'm seeing with them, let's see how we can overcome that barrier, whether it be shyness or whether it be language barrier, whether there's lots of different barriers that can come up. And as a mentor, it's kind of our job to help them negotiate those barriers, not break them down for them. I'm not going to take a sledgehammer and break down their barriers, but I'm going to kind of help them negotiate them themselves, so that they can be the best that they can be. And I can't say this enough. It's just so rewarding to see people grow. Where Connie's come from when I first met her to where she is now, it's amazing. And now she's mentoring others. I'm kind of like the grandpa mentor to some of her mentees, because they'll come up to me and ask me questions as well, which is great. And it's just so rewarding to see it. But again, if you try to be too prescriptive as a mentor, I think that kind of turns the mentees off. If I had told Connie exactly what she needs to do every single day, she probably would have said, all right, enough of this guy, I'm out of here, and sought mentorship elsewhere. So again, it's about helping negotiate barriers, helping with the decision making. But again, the decision is yours. I've never made a decision for Connie. She's made all of her own decisions. I've helped her with those decisions. I've given my advice. I've kind of tried to show both sides of the mirror when she's making decisions. But again, everything is up to her. And that's how you become a stronger therapist. If somebody just tells you what to do, it's like the old days when we used to get the scripts from doctors, do 10 sets of 3 straight leg raises, ultrasound times 5 minutes, and massage. I mean, you're not using anything to do that. We've become an autonomous practice. And with that comes the need for autonomous growth and autonomous leadership, autonomous education, and taking our own responsibility for our own development, that lifelong learning that we hear so much about. You're never done. So as a mentor, I try to stress that with the people who will listen to me and, try to guide them through.
And I think a prime example of that, if you don't mind, Jamie, sharing a little story. A prime example for that, it will be, I crossed to the dark side and I went to outpatient for a little bit. And it was really hard to make that decision because I was in my dream job. I was working at a trauma center. I was working with my mentor. But really what I learned throughout the year and a half is that I wanted my path to go towards leadership. I had a passion that I wanted to change the healthcare system. And I believed that if I would go into a leadership journey, then I was going to be able to really create this army, and then we can change the world. So that's the Kool-Aid that I was drinking at the moment. And as much as the decision was really hard, the opportunity presented itself for me to seek leadership growth. It had to be in the outpatient setting. And I recall having multiple conversations with Jamie over quite a month period. And I remember him saying, if I was selfish, of course, I want you to stay here because I love working with my friend and we have such a good relationship and I get to see you like nearly every day and we get to travel together. But if it's for your growth, then I think you should go.
Wow.
And that was one of the hardest decisions that I had ever had to make because it meant leaving my comfort and leaving my protector, my mentor, like my family.
Your safe zone. Yeah.
Correct. To go into something completely unknown. So I think that that's where the true caliber of mentoring that he provides shows.
Yeah, but the cord wasn't cut, and she may have been working without a net, but she never fell to the floor. So that's okay. And she did a great job in that. And now she's back in acute care where she belongs.
Well, okay, so let me get the whole trajectory. So again, your first interaction with each other was in Jamie's, was it cardio pump class? That's when you were a student. That was your first interaction with Jamie. And then Connie, tell me, what did you know about acute care even before like PT school? Did you even know what acute care was, or?
I did my shadowing hours in acute care,
Okay, okay.
but I was an athlete. So and just like every student athlete, I play college tennis, and
Okay.
everyone goes in as like, I'm gonna be a PT for like the big leagues.
Mhm,
Right?
mhm.
And that's every that ex-athlete goes in wanting that. And then I met Jamie, and then I went into my very first clinical. I was very intentional with the selection of my clinicals while I was in school. So I said, I want to see the entire continuum of care. So
Mhm.
my very first one was acute care combined with outpatient, because you don't do much when you're in your first one. My second one was ICU trauma. My
Wow.
third one was inpatient rehab. My last one was outpatient. So
Mm.
I wanted to see the entire continuum of care, and I was very
Right.
intentional with those selections.
Mm.
So when I went into acute care the first time, I was like, I just fell in love. I'm like, this is where I think that I belong. This is where I want to be at. When I went into ICU trauma and burns, I was like even more blown away. I was like, this is what I really want to be.
Wow. I love
And
hearing
then
that story.
and then I went to inpatient rehab, and I was like, okay, they're cool. And then I went to outpatient. I was like, nope, I don't ever want to do this. I don't think that this is for me. A knee is a knee, a hip is a hip, a shoulder is a shoulder. There is nothing interesting or fun about it. You just follow a
Mhm.
protocol, with all the respect to the outpatient
With
therapist.
all the respect to the outpatient therapist.
No,
We're
Got me
gonna get
laughing.
emails.
they have the knowledge base. They are board certified, and I'm sure that they are passionate about it. And I'm sure that I'm creating a more simplistic explanation to what they do.
They
But
do the same thing to us. It's okay. We can do that.
I
It's
know,
our
right?
thing.
They
We do
just
this
think that
all
we
the
just get
time
people out of
also.
bed, and that's it. And no, we do more than that.
Mm.
So I knew where I wanted to be, but then I had this passion and this dream and this desire, and I had to step out of my comfort zone and go to outpatient. But I didn't go to ortho. I said I had to do something that is still intertwined and related with acute care. So I became a neurotherapist in the outpatient world, which is
Yeah.
something that I knew. TBI, stroke, that's something familiar. Same knowledge base. I had a lot of spinal cord injuries. So then you have your cardiopulmonary there, quite a little bit involved. So I wasn't really, and then during the pandemic, I took over all the COVID patients and the long haulers that they were coming into the outpatient area.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So even though I wasn't in this setting, I wasn't totally detached. And what I think it gave a lot of value to my practice is that I did go through the chart review of acute care and what happened in the hospital. And I did ask all those extra questions to my patients. How long was your hospital stay? Were you intubated? Were you in critical care? Like I went ahead with my question and my subjective because I knew that I had the knowledge base for.
Mm-hmm,
And I used
mm-hmm.
that to my advantage. However, when something calls your name, you just gotta go.
Right?
And then, especially 60 days ago,
This is new news. 60 days ago,
this is
right?
news. Yeah, 60
Okay.
days ago, or a little bit longer because I had to give some 4-week notice. The acute care, the hospital across the street from the clinic, because I work in a hospital-based facility, their manager was retiring. And I was
Ah.
like, ha ha ha, here is leadership in
Mm-hmm,
acute care together.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, I had a great relationship with the supervisor, and she was my way in, and we talked on an interview. And when I interview, I'm thinking that for them it was a no-brainer because the negotiation went very easy. And I have been here happy for the last 60 days, and it has been a blast being back in acute care.
Wow. So full circle. So
Mhm.
then, so you're the manager now of therapy in the
Yep,
hospital.
for rehab.
So now is Jamie working at the hospital? Are you Jamie's boss?
No, different hospital, different hospital system.
Okay.
However, I may or may not have gotten an offer to become a PRN.
Oh, I see. Very cool.
Potentially. No, but my team is really eager to learn and to hear all the cool stuff that Academy of Acute Care is doing and to learn more. So I have invited Jamie to do a couple of in-service at some point,
So cool.
They're really eager to download all the resources that you guys have put together for vital signs and for lab values and taking the competencies. So we are taking quite an advantage of all the resources the Academy has put together to elevate the practice of all our therapists in acute care.
And
just
she's
to put it
lucky
out there,
there's a really good sandwich shop near the hospital. So I'm willing to go and teach. It'll cost her a sandwich, but it's it's well worth it.
I will have to say that APT Acute Care, I'm not paying Connie to say these things the way you just kind of pitched APT Acute Care, and the fact that Jamie, your name is on a lot of these documents, right? You've been in a leadership or a partial authorship, a lot of these documents, and again, just like good mentors, there's so much information to the APT Acute Care website and being a member that people don't take advantage of. And there's a lot of therapists that are out there. It's like, oh, I wish there were resources. I wish there was a network. I wish. It's like, hey, just turn the page and open the website, and we've got plenty of opportunities. Yeah, that people are
As
taking
much as
advantage
it's
of.
super powerful to be a member, which we all know, and it's important to be one because the strength is in the numbers, and
Yes.
that's how we create change.
Absolutely.
The resources are available for everyone, and they're so valuable. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're not running to download these resources for your workplace, we need to rethink your pathway.
Yeah.
You might need to come talk to Jamie and I.
Call them out, Connie. Call them out.
We wanna practice to the top of our licensure. We all want to make patients better. That's the reason why we're here for. Well, we need to practice good therapy. We need to have the knowledge base, and science moves at lightning speed. So why not? You guys already revamped the initial resources that was put out there.
Yes.
So we already have a second version, the 2.0.
Yep.
So then we need to be looking at that. We can be practicing with information from 10 years ago.
Right. Absolutely. And as a testament to Jamie, your influence, again, like the reason I'm even a part of APT Acute Care and in the leadership positions that I'm in is because of meeting people like you. Who else was that? Tim Ravenhagen, Tracy Norris, who was our APT Acute Care president. Same thing, Connie. Is like I met them here. They came to do a lab values talk over at the University of Chicago, which I literally just visited yesterday on the outpatient side of things for a site visit because one of my students is going to be going there, so I did a site visit. It was so nice to be around back in Hyde Park and over at the University of Chicago. At the time, Jennifer Ryan, so I'll shout out her name. Jennifer Ryan was there, and I had invited people from APT Acute Care to be to talk about lab values. It was a continuing education course. I just remember specifically hearing Jamie say, like, somebody's getting transfusion. That's no reason to keep them immobilized. Somebody's on these particular medications. That's no reason. Like, our intervention should not be more immobility. We know the literature in terms of the sequelae of problems with immobility. We as physical therapists should not reinforce more immobility. And so my mind was blown. So I came back, literally changed my practice the next day, saying, like, you know what, every patient, I need to do my best to advocate for them to get them moving, rather than the default of, oh, there's an excuse for me not to move them. Oh, they just received their no. And so I think that was so revelatory. It changed my practice, changed also, because when I looked at them, I was like, man, this is what I want to be like in like 5 and 10 years. And sure enough, like my, what I'm doing now with APT Acute Care, it's, and a lot of it is, again, because of that mentorship. So Jamie, you've got waves of, Connie, you mentioned armies of PTs. Jamie, you've been our general from the get-go. So I just wanted to thank both of you for.
And again, there's varying degrees of mentor-mentee relationships.
Yep.
And I tell everybody, if you only have one mentor, you're not doing it right. There should be multiple mentors.
Yes.
And you need your expert for whatever area you're wanting mentorship in. So, for some people like you have multiple mentors, and I'm honored to be considered one of them. And, we don't meet on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis, but when we see each other, we hang out, we talk, we chat, and, catch up. Absolutely. And, that's the kind of relationship we have. Connie and I, we talk probably once a week, if not more, or some, give or take a little bit. And, we keep that relationship tight. With other mentees that I have, we talk maybe once a month, or, there's varying degrees of that. And it's really up to the need of the mentee. If you need to talk to me every day, well, you better tell me and, say we need to talk every day or every week or whatever the case may be.
Right.
And, if I can do it, I'll be happy to. If you need to talk to me every day, well, maybe we need to figure out how to cut that down a little bit. But, it's up to the mentee to kind of set the cadence for how often you want to meet. and, discuss things and talk and catch up and, share whatever your questions are with the mentor. And,
then
many
also,
times, just like go ahead, Connie.
No, I was saying, like, let's talk about the fact that, like, the people you meet because your mentor is the mentor to others. Like, I had the pleasure to meet, well, you, Leo, and also Dr. Katie Brito, which is like my absolute favorite person in the world. And I remember Jamie talking about Katie for like years, right? It was like, oh my God, I have this girl. She's like the you from up north. Like, it's you, like, you're my Florida, and she's like my northern one. And it was years that I kept hearing about Katie, not in a jealous way. But I was like, I want to meet this girl. And then I met her, and it's like, I felt like I have known her my whole life. We just clicked. I will say that she quickly became one of my favorite people, and I will call her a friend at this point, even though we don't talk that often. But I'm in awe with how much of a powerhouse she is. Like, she's a phenomenal human being, a phenomenal friend, a fantastic therapist, a great researcher. I mean, let's talk about like a 10 out of 10 kind of girl. That's your Dr. Brito right there. So, and I only had the pleasure to meet her because she was one of Jamie's mentees at some point, because she also has many. So just talk about the power of that connection. Just because I desire to continue to have a relationship with Jamie as a mentor, and he was so cool to just bring more cool people around.
So shout out to Katie Brito, who's one of our producers for the podcast. And she literally, I think we spooked her because I do plan on having her as a podcast guest along with Jennifer Ryan and that mentorship relationship. But I know, Jamie, did you text her? She was texting about.
I texted her. I said, "Did Leo send us the link for today's podcast?" And she kind of gave me the Scooby-Doo question mark, and had no idea what I was talking about. But
she literally just texted me.
It's good for you. It makes the heart stronger.
She texted me. She goes, "Jamie asked if you guys were still recording today." It's just like, oh, we got it all taken care of. So shout out to Katie Brito, and absolutely a powerhouse. So we're at about time right now. It's the time for what we call rapid responses. Jamie's been through the ringer. We've gotten a chance to do the rapid response with him, but Connie, as our guest for today, new on the podcast, you're going to be doing the rapid responses. So I'll start off. So the gold rapid responses that we're going to time you for a minute. We're going to ask some questions. Jamie, if you got a question that comes into mind, just shoot a hand out there and we'll let you take the next question. Okay. We'll go a minute. First thing that comes to your head, spit it out. Ready, Connie?
Ready.
All right. Here we go. And go. Connie, when you work on acute care, what's your most favorite scrub color to wear?
Teal.
What's your most favorite dessert?
Tiramisu.
Great one. What is your preferred way of exercising?
Lifting. But now it's boxing. So
now boxing, fantastic. Before you walk into a patient's room, what would be your theme song as you walk into that patient's room?
Eye of the Tiger.
Eye of the Tiger, with a boxing parallel over there. When you work on acute care, what type of shoes do you wear?
Sneakers.
Do you have a particular kind? Asics, Hoka?
I have Asics and Nikes.
Nike is fantastic. What is Jamie, go for it.
Finish this equation. Life equals
ventilation and perfusion.
All right. Finish this statement. Blood in stasis.
No, don't do that to me.
Oh, but we're at time. My ringer went off. We're at time. And so the last question for rapid responses that we have for you, Connie, you know that you're working on acute care when you
have a change of scrubs in the car.
Absolutely. Always have that extra because you never know what's going to happen on a day. There's always surprises.
They are called vowel movements for a reason. When you move them, they move.
They move. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jamie and Connie, for being here today. If people have questions for you all, if they want to learn more about mentorship, or they just want to learn more about you, maybe they're going to seek mentorship from you, where can people find you? Do you have some social media or emails or ways for people to connect with you all that you can share?
Yeah, so email will be the easiest one to get a hold of me, which is Aranda, just like my last name, DPT gmail.com. That's the easiest way to find me. But Jamie and I have an endeavor together. We have a tiny little starter. I started a company, which is called Babar Solutions, LLC. And we soon will be having an updated website going up. So we will make sure to share it with you as well. So Jamie, what are your digits?
Oh, everyone can reach me at Jamie Dyson 224, and that's my birthday. If you want to send me a card at gmail.com. And I'm also available through the APTA, Jamie Dyson at apta.org.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, Jamie, Connie, thank you so much for taking the time, sharing your stories. It was a delightful conversation. Jamie, thank you for coming back. And Connie, I'm a fan too of yours, by the way, because I, again, remember when I first met you at CSM, and then I saw both you and Katie at this last CSM, and you all look like you have known each other for years. You look like the best of friends. So it was so great to see the two of you. And then that's when I came into my head. I'm like, I remember Connie and this story. We have to get her on the podcast. And thank you also again, Katie Brito, for kind of helping facilitate this and putting this podcast together.
Well, you know what's gonna happen from here, right, Leo?
What's gonna happen? What's the next step?
We're gonna hang out at the next CSM.
I absolutely. I'll be seeking you all out for mentorship. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Leo,
for a great episode. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
We would like to thank Jamie and Connie for joining us on the podcast. Acute Conversations is the official podcast of APTA Acute Care. It is hosted by Leo Arguelles, executive produced by Katie Brito and Edward Mathis, music by Alexei Action from Pixabay, sound effects also from Pixabay. For more information about APTA Acute Care, be sure to check out our show notes for links and resources from the Academy. If you found value from our podcast, please be sure to subscribe, follow, and share with your friends and colleagues. Join us next time for an engaging conversation with a pair of UIC DPT students. Thank you for listening, and may your shoes and scrubs stay clean today.